We're barely halfway through the season, and Matt Rule's dealing with a bigger injury problem than he's ever faced before. The offense that was already expected to be their weakness loses a starter almost every week, and after the Northwestern game, we heard about 4 more. But unlike the teams in the past, Nebraska keeps fighting through adversity, and winning 4 of the last 5 down as many starters as they are is a massive feat. With new faces comes new energy, and that energy might be what this team needs to break into the top 100 in total offense after this week. So today, we'll talk about the injuries and we'll talk about what's next for the offense. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. I'm obviously in a new space. There isn't anything on the walls, and I don't have my sound panels up yet, so we're gonna have to deal with an echo for a minute. But if you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my Purdue game preview. And if you're just happy to see this team get on a winning streak and you're not gonna find or look for reasons to complain, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Thompson winds up, goes deep, got a man, touchdown!
Let's start off with the good. For the first time in 4 years, Nebraska's got a winning record after 6 weeks. And if you look back to 2019, they made it to 4-3, but their backup QB play and the weak defensive efforts weren't enough to get them to the postseason. This staff's still rebuilding like Frost was, but the difference now is a really good special teams unit and backups who've all played as well as anybody who was starting over them. Next was the pass rush. Nash Hutmacher was the headline story, finishing with 7 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 2.5 for loss. But the entire line was fantastic. Prince Will, a true freshman, had 7 tackles, a sack, and 2 for a loss. Ty Robinson, who's always had a high ceiling but hasn't been that consistent, looked dominant. James Williams, who nobody had heard of before this week, came out of nowhere towards the end, and he was just further confirmation that the line's in a great place now, which says a lot about how good they can be in the future and says a lot about how far they came since last season. I saw this tweet and thought this was interesting too. Nebraska kids scored all of the points on Saturday. Tristan Alvano's from Omaha and he had 5. Heinrich Harburg's from Kearney and Malachi Coleman's from Lincoln, and they both went for 6. Pessimists will say we suck and need better talent from the South so the offense can start scoring more points. The optimists, or people like me, think it's freaking awesome because in the past, this staff's only option was to go out of state for playmakers. But now, Nebraska high school recruits are way better than they were back then. And since this staff wants to go after every big name in the state, this game was just a sign of what's to come in the future when you have a highly recruited starting quarterback, tight end, and receivers who all dreamt about playing in Memorial Stadium. This game wasn't the only positive from the weekend. Iowa should have beaten Minnesota on a punt return, but their returner waved his hand to tell his blockers where to go, and it was technically a fair catch call, so they lost at home to Minnesota. I think it's kind of BS, but the rule's pretty clear, so that's on the return team to figure out better ways to communicate. Wisconsin barely escaped Illinois, and even though they got the win and moved to 3-1 in the Big Ten, they're going to lose to Ohio State Saturday, and as long as Nebraska beats Purdue, we'll have a 3 or 4-way tie for first in the division. And last, I want to talk about this tweet that my USC friends keep sending me. They're all complaining about Lincoln Riley and telling me he's a shitty coach who needs to be fired, which is obviously so ridiculous, and they're just being dramatic. Yeah, Riley's to blame for not having a defense since he kept Alex Grinch on his staff for way longer than he should have. But to compare his 17-5 start to Clay Helton is ridiculous. Helton inherited a top 25 Steve Sarkisian-led team that had 3 top 10 recruiting classes before he took over as head coach. Lincoln Riley took over a program that Helton destroyed that Riley turned into an 11-game winner the very next season. As a Nebraska fan, I hope Riley keeps Grinch and the SC defense is just as bad next year so Rule can go into the Coliseum and pull off a win. But Lincoln Riley's a great coach, and even though he might not want to make the tough call, the end is near for his DC, and SC is going to join the Big Ten with a new vision for how they're going to win games going forward. Today's show is brought to you for free by CarrickerChronicles.com, where you can find Nebraska football and Big Ten content from Adam Carricker and other personalities he's worked with. And Adam's YouTube channel is only 40 subscribers away from hitting 10,000. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to him yet, make sure to click the link in my description box below so you don't miss any of the player interviews he does during the season. I know I haven't shown you, but my studio setup is more than just a microphone, a light, and a camera. I have an entire base, and there are like 60 different things you gotta plug in. So today I came to my new place, I tried to plug it all back to where it was supposed to be, and somewhere along the line, I made a mistake, because when I came to make this video at 3 o'clock, it just wasn't gonna happen. Fortunately, I got a hold of Denon. Denon hopped on. He troubleshot everything on my PC. He tried to figure out what the issue was. And after an hour and 20 minutes, he figured out that I plugged my HDMI cable into the wrong port. So Denon, I'm sorry that I wasted your time, but I'm super appreciative that you were able to help me out and figure out how to get us up and running, because I really need to be making videos on game week. And once I'm all moved in and everything's on the walls and looks nice, I'm gonna make sure to make a video for you to give you a studio tour, since you guys are the ones who helped me build it. Today we got all the injury updates, and 4 more starters are either done for the year or gonna be out for a few weeks. Starting left tackle Turner Corcoran and right guard Ethan Piper are having season-ending surgeries, and left guard Nuri Nwili and receiver Billy Kemp are both going to miss at least the next 2 weeks. I see a lot of questions about the strength and conditioning, or what else could be the problem or the reason that we've seen this insane amount of injuries, but Matt Rhule said in the presser that they've all come from contact, and there's just nothing they can do as a staff to prevent that. A lot of it's luck, and he said that if there was a way to help in the offseason, that they'll make the changes they need to. But my guess is this is just an incredibly unlucky year for guys on offense, and when you play really hard to the end of the whistle, good things usually happen, but bad stuff can too. I'm honestly impressed with how well Satterfield's managed the offense, being down so many key guys. Since week 1, Nebraska's lost their starting QB, their top 2 running backs, top 3 receivers, 3 starters on the O-line, and as it stands today, there are 4 starters on offense who entered the year on the 3rd or 4th team. Think about how much coaching and energy went into the 9 guys who aren't playing, and more importantly, how different the coaching was for the new starters who were probably looked at as guys to develop for the future and not major contributors who'd make up a majority of the offense today. Haarberg, Emmett Johnson, and Malachi Coleman, who are 3 of the most important pieces on offense today, weren't expected to contribute much this year, and because of that, they probably didn't get the same type of work in spring and fall camp that guys in front of them did. Fans want to see an offense that improves every week, but the reality is they're just trying to build themselves into a serviceable starting unit that limits drops, has more positive plays than negative, and doesn't turn it over. Scoring more than 10 on Big Ten defenses isn't the expectation, it's the goal. And getting to 17 and 20 versus Illinois and Northwestern is something to be proud of, even if it didn't look all that pretty. This week, Teddy Prohaska's back at left tackle, and Rhule says he's fully healthy for the first time this year. Henry Lutovsky and Justin Evans-Jenkins step in at the guard spots. Jaden Doss takes Billy Kemp's position in the slot, and a total of 21 underclassmen make up the 26 spots on the depth chart for the offense. If we're going to be realistic, we're done hoping the offense gets better. The hope is that even with so many new faces, they keep scoring 17 to 20 a week. That's enough to beat any team left on this schedule. Against Power 5 schools, Purdue scoring 21 points a game, Michigan State 11, Maryland 31, Wisconsin 23, and Iowa averages 15. The only team in that group that has potential to score 20 plus on Nebraska's D is Maryland, and even they haven't looked great the last 2 weeks now that they're playing against better teams. Malachi's proven he's ready to be a starting receiver. Emmett Johnson looked good as the main ball carrier, and even though the line's been up and down, they still have their 2 best guys in Bryce Benhart and Ben Scott to help the young dudes along. The game plan runs through Haarberg's legs and his ability to extend plays when nothing's there at the beginning, but even if something went wrong there, Jeff Sims is an amazing insurance policy to keep the unit alive. The best teams in college football all have really strong QB play, and weak QB play was the reason for Nebraska's first 2 losses. Haarberg isn't great, but he plays complementary football. He helps the defense by not turning it over too often, by keeping drives alive and scoring just enough to finish on top. The only expectations I have are to win every one of the games they play for the next 5 weeks. And even if it looks sloppy, these players and coaches are all going above and beyond what would have been expected of them if we could have looked into a crystal ball and seen the future. On the flip side, the defense hasn't had that many injuries, and the only long-term one was Singleton, who should be back soon. But they go so deep at almost every position, they can limit guys' reps to make sure everybody's fresh, and I think that keeps guys pretty healthy too. Again, most of the injury stuff's just bad luck, and it's football, so you get what you get. In 6 years, I had 4 surgeries because of football injuries, to my collarbone, my shoulder, and twice on my knee. The mentality's always got to be next man up. Northwestern was a great warm-up back off the bye, but now every game they play gets tougher, starting with Purdue, who's come out on top against Nebraska 4 of the last 5 times. So healthy or not, Rhule's going to have to make sure the mentality stays the same and his best players keep making plays when they matter the most, because that'll be the difference between winning and losing the tight games. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Who's the most reliable receiver now that Billy Kemp's out? Will the O-line take a step back without 3 starters, or do you trust the guys coming in behind them? Why do you think there have been so many injuries on offense, but not on D? I guess it's because the defense is bigger and faster than most of the offenses they're playing, but who knows? It's probably just because most of the offensive guys are the ones getting hit all the time. But that's all I've got for today, so until next time, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.